Hello and welcome back to Dropkick for the Win. We are going to do our predictions and synopsis of the synopsis is not the right word, but our predictions for the upcoming season for the NFL 2025-2026 season. You got Kilroy, we got Mongo. Let's do this. So kicking things off, we got the AFC East Mongo's division.
Let's go.
So, Mongo, you want to take us off? Who do you think will finish in last place in the AFC East?
Ooh, that's a great question because I got to be honest. So, whenever you're watching this, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. We love you guys. But we're purposely filming the Sunday night of Week 1 by design to try and almost dare ourselves to overreact. And I really feel there are only two teams. Kilroy, you can feel free to agree or disagree as we go through. But I feel there are really only two teams who have a right to overreact after Week 1. But for the most part, maybe I'm putting teams up or down a little bit. And I say that because I've been on the anti-Dolphin train for a while now. Tyreek Hill looks ready to just implode this whole thing. Tua doesn't look like he can keep it together. I think the league's starting to figure out the offensive system here. They didn't do enough to upgrade their offensive line. There's a whole lot of problems in Miami, and it's only going to get worse. I had them as like the 30th best team in the league coming into today. They might be worse than the Saints. This might be a team in the Arch Manning sweepstakes. This might be the front runner in the Arch Manning sweepstakes now. I always have Miami fourth, but now I think the Jets can at least sleep easy knowing they're not Miami. Give me Miami in the basement here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think the top is there's one team on the top. We all know that.
Yes, it's Buffalo and Field. We'll spoil that right now.
But I thought these three teams were all going to be and they still could be. I think they're going to, obviously 500 is not a thing anymore now that we have odd number of games, but around the 9 and 8, 8 and 9 area record wise for these teams. I also thought Miami was going to be the weakest of the three. I actually probably, yeah, I mean, after how bad they played and there's just, I can't put them higher. I think 4 is where they belong. That offense was not Tua looked terrible. I mean, eventually the concussion stuff was going to catch up. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's sad. And really, I think is still best for him to not. I don't think he's going to retire, but I think he should retire because I mean he's had so many bad concussions, and it's just there's just so much information now about concussions. It was different back in the day when people were more. They didn't know how severe concussions really are to us. But I'm not here to preach that, but definitely Dolphins looked bad, and their defense wasn't good. Nothing was good. So in third, I have honestly, 3 and 2 are very tough for me. I think I'm going to go with New England at number 3. I think that they are still Drake May is still just a little bit too young and a little bit, has a lot. He's still learning, right? And a lot of players struggle in their second year, especially quarterbacks, right? Like quarterbacks are known to take a step back in year 2 for whatever reason. Their sophomore year is just not as good. I don't know why. Maybe it's because the other players have figured them out a bit more, right? Because you're not when you come into the NFL. College tape doesn't always help, so they only have all the tape they have is whatever games you've played or preseason games you've played. And now the teams have more tape about you, so you have to learn to adjust. And again, Drake May did not have a good game today, but I don't think that that's necessarily who he is. I think that that's silly to say that about a player one game in. So I'm not, I think that they got the coach correct. I think they got their I think they got their quarterback. I think that their offensive line is going to start improving. And that defense eventually will start getting better too. They're going to get, it was a bad team, and bad teams have to take time to get better. You just need to acquire players.
Now, that's a great way to say it. And I'll tell you, I guess we'll talk about 2 and 3 here because, we have ours flipped. So I think they kind of go hand in hand. To me, today's New England game, and again, to me, the panic meter on both teams here is a hard 0 in Vegas and New England. I think this speaks more about Pete Carroll having, the Raiders ready and, how tough and out they're going to be each and every week. They're a feisty little team there with a lot of good young players. But New England, they lost a game. It happens. And, but to me, the bigger story is the Jets, who I actually now have safely in third. And this is one of the teams who I think it's fair, not necessarily record-wise, but I think it's fair to hit the panic button here and overreact on if you're a Jet fan. I said back on draft night, I've said since February, you can go back and check the Hugo Boy episodes I've done over there. I've been saying, get used to hearing the phrase, with the 13th pick in the 2026 draft, the New York Jets select. I thought they were a lock for 7 and 10-ish, right around that 13. And I came out in August and said, Aaron Glenn looks like he has something going here. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I'm now leaning closer to 14th or 15th pick than 12th or 11th pick. I saw things I liked. And at the end of this, I'll give you kind of my AFC tiers. I'll tell you, I have 3 teams, 7, 8, and 9 tiered in the AFC, kind of the last teams fighting for that playoff spot. And I thought if the Jets could win every single one of their winnable games, their schedule allowed them to get in that tier. This was a must win if they wanted to sniff the playoffs. I mean, yes, they had some good things happening. Yeah, they lost on a few bonehead special teams plays, a 60-yard losing on a 60-yard field goal by the other team, not going to happen all the time. So, okay, there's a lot of reasons to want to just shake this off if you're the Jets, but I'm sorry, this effectively ends their season. They needed they're going to have to.
Yeah.
And I was counting like beating Buffalo week 18 with Buffalo having nothing to play for. I mean, if they wanted to sniff the playoffs, they needed every win they could even humanly sniff. They're going to have to they're going to have to find they're going to have to be Baltimore or something at this point if they want to sniff the playoffs. They're going to need a huge upset somewhere along the way. And it's probably not happening. So I think there's still a team that's going to win 7 or 8. I think New England's good for 8 or 9. I have New England slightly ahead, but the Jets schedule puts them in a position where you could see them just kind of losing a few at the end because they won't have anything to play for. The harder games are up front. I could just see them being kind of dead in the water come December and fall to third. Power rankings wise, I'm with you. I think they're incredibly close, but I think the Jets were sadly in one of the most must-win positions in week 1, and they lost.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough loss because the Jets, I feel, played better than Pittsburgh. I feel Pittsburgh did not show up. Aside from Aaron Rodgers and his 4 touchdowns, which is kind of hilarious because he played so poorly the past 2 years with the Jets. One was obviously due he was out after one play, but so inconsistently with the Jets. But the Jets' offense looked surprisingly good. Breece Hall was doing what they've been wanting him to do for years. Fields, solid. Not amazing. He's never going to be amazing, I don't think, but he's good. I think he is an NFL starting quarterback. And I think that's something the Jets should be happy to have. They're not, can they get better? Yes, they can get a better quarterback. I don't know if they're in a position to ever get one, like you're saying. I think that their team is too good to be in the top of the draft and not good enough that a team is that they're gonna be able to get a big name free agent quarterback.
Yeah, and go back and just check the film on my diagnosis. I mean, and again, I don't claim to be an expert, but to me, the Jet recipe, the recipe for beating the Jets was obvious. And in turn, I said it from the get-go, this team is 2 years away because they don't have a wide receiver 2. They don't have a CB2, and they don't have enough pass rush depth. And so you watch Brandon Stevens have that real bad penalty and drop that interception in the fourth. You watch hybrid Ty Johnson, who's debatably not even a wide receiver, be the only other wide receiver who makes a catch in the first half. And you watch Will McDonald have 2 of their first 3 sacks. And it's, come on, how obvious? I mean, it's an obvious formula. Just don't throw at Sauce, quadruple team Garrett Wilson, and double team, Will McDonald. And this team has too many holes. So at 13 next year in the draft, they draft the top corner on the board. In the second round, they take a wide receiver and not a deep threat. I think Arian Smith is going to develop as a deep threat. You get a guy like Adam Thielen who can move the chains on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and then you take a couple day 3 pass rushers. And if you do that, I think this team's right in the hunt for the 6 or 7, in the playoffs, if not even, starting to sniff Buffalo next year. But for now, this team has some gaping holes that even a team like Pittsburgh, who I agree with you, looked a lot today like they were actively trying to lose. If they can exploit the obvious holes on the Jets, listen, Mike Tomlin's a good coach, but it should be pretty obvious. Just do those couple things, and the Jets are pretty beatable this year.
Yeah. But I think it is very close. Maybe I am. I don't know. I think it will definitely be close between New England and the Jets for that, because I think they're both about in the same spot, but New England's just younger in a way.
And very sorry to cut you off there, but very similar team, right? Nobody, Christian Gonzalez, a clear number 1, DB in New England, just kind of don't throw towards him. In New England's case, it's really no wide receivers, right? Just don't let them run all over you. Force me to throw. Otherwise they're going to try and just sort of maul you in the trenches. Similar teams. And, I just, at this point, I think Drake May is a little bit more, when you look at a quarterback, you almost kind of look at, we talk about the elite quarterbacks are the ones who can find a way to win any game no matter what. May and Fields are nowhere near that level. They're towards the bottom. But right now, I just feel like if you're going to call it the magician's rankings, right? Joe Burrow can win he's a magician. He can win any game he wants. I think May's a little bit higher up. And so I feel like May is more likely to accidentally win the game against the Browns than the Jets are, or sweep Miami, whereas the Jets might split with Miami, and I think those are
who knows not how bad they're playing.
Right. But, or that might be the reason the Patriots sweep the Jets. Right. And I just feel like those, games, common opponents that the Jets and Patriots will both be somewhere between 2-point underdogs and 2-point favorites against. I feel like Drake May being a more polished quarterback may be the difference, because at the end of the day, they're very, very similar teams.
Yeah. And I can see it. I don't know. I liked what I saw. I didn't watch the New England game. I was watching the Jets game, and I liked what I saw. So I can only go with what I saw with my eyes. And hands down, Buffalo, unless again, and all this is without injuries. If a major injury happened, that's different. But as it stands, Buffalo is the team to beat in this division. It's not even close. It should be like this for at least the next 5-6 years. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They have a very good defense. He doesn't seem to need top tier weapons. He's good with middle of the road type of weapons. And they're going to continue to succeed, I think, unless they have, again, a catastrophic injury to offensive linemen or something like that. But I don't see that. Again, that's not what we're predicting. I think that they're going to win it. I think they're going to be one of the top. I think they're going to be one of the top 2 teams in the AFC this year. And when we get to the other, there's one that I had higher, but we'll get there later.
Yeah, we'll do our predictions at the end here, but just real quick, I just need to because I know we need to move on here. I'll just add to that, and again, knock on wood here, because we never want to talk about injuries. But listen, I like James Cook as a player. I like Ed Oliver as a player. Angrily come after me in the comments for whichever Bills I'm missing, but it's only one injury that would hurt them. I mean, Josh Allen, my opinion on MVP, right? Which player, when you take them away, is the most destructive to the team? And to me, Josh Allen, That's why I always say I put Allen and Mahomes ahead of Lamar Jackson in that conversation, because they just have so much less talent around them. And Allen even significantly less than Mahomes, right? I mean, there's a lot of good players there, but take Josh Allen off the Bills.
Oh, that team is bad.
And they're 0-17. I mean, it's not even debatable.
No, they're not a good team.
As long as they have Josh Allen, they're fine and should have this division wrapped up by week 14, week 13 even. So.
All right, let's move over to the AFC North, because that's the next one. That's my division. Well,
if you don't mind, because this is your division, I'd like to save you a little time here, because I'm only going to say one thing here. Coming into today, bottom to top, I had Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Baltimore, with the only even discussion being, could Cleveland pass Pittsburgh? And the only reason I don't want to do that is because somehow Pittsburgh wins 8 or 9 games, no matter how good or how bad they are. And I don't think Cleveland can reach that. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to say nobody really changed my mind today, except Cleveland is the other team. I think you should really feel differently tonight than you did at 8 a.m. this morning, because, man, Harold Fannin is the truth. And, man, Dylan Sampson is the truth. They hit on a couple rookies there. Holy moly, those kids look good. Joe Flacco looks like he knows how to use them. You still have Judy. I mean, they lost that game on 2 interceptions that bounced out of reliable receivers' hands. I mean, Judy and Tillman tried to do too much, and I don't blame them. I mean, they were heavy underdogs against a division rival. You're going to try to do too much. But, Adam Njoku, Judkins signed that contract this week. There's a ton of obviously Myles Garrett leads the defense no matter what but there's a ton of offensive talent, young offensive talent on this team. And, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm ecstatic, even on a loss with what I saw today. So I'm going to keep it Browns, Steelers, Bengals, Ravens, but watch out for the Browns in the next couple of years. And otherwise, this is another one. Again, I don't want to, we'll talk rankings and playoff predictions and whatnot, who's in, who's out at the end of this episode. But again, this one's another one that I think is not even close. The Ravens are going to win this division, with 3-4 weeks to spare, and they're way out in front. But go ahead. I'll leave the rest of the division up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Ravens winning the division. I don't think it's close. I actually think it might be, especially after today with how Aaron Rodgers played, I think it will be closer between Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. But I do have Cleveland as the 4. I think that I like Joe Flacco. I think he is he's 38, 37, 38, something like that.
Drafted in 2007, drafted in 2009, 2007, something like that.
So then he's a lot older than I thought. Then he's got to be close to 40, if not 40.
You can work from there, but I mean, he's I think 2007 might be the year.
So he's yeah, that's right.
Put him around 40.
It was our senior year.
Yeah.
So it was 06 then, right?
It would have been in the 2007 draft.
Yeah.
But wants to know.
And he, I like him, obviously. I was happy when he was in Baltimore. I loved what he did. He got I wish things ended better with him. I kind of wish he would retire too, because he does this, right? Where he did with the Jets. He did it with, no, I don't think he did with the Colts, but he did it with the Jets and he did with the Browns, where he gives the team kind of false hope. Where and I think Cleveland is better served losing, because I don't think Cleveland likes either of their quarterbacks. I don't think they really like Dylan Gabriel, and I don't think they like Shedeur Sanders. I think that they just have them because they didn't want to draft an early quarterback, because outside of the guy in Tennessee, I'm blanking on his name right now,
Cam Ward,
they didn't really seem, I don't think they liked any of the quarterbacks in the draft, which is kind of the consensus for most teams. So I can understand that. So, but I think Joe Flacco makes them too good to be in the top of the draft, which is where they need to be. But
yeah, I'll tell you. And again, as a Browns fan, I was with that possibly 12 hours ago, but honestly, having 2 very good tight ends, 2 good running backs, one with, Dylan Sampson's hands shocked me today. You have a third running back coming in once he gets up to speed, pending the suspension. Tillman is I don't even remember who was quarterbacking for them last year. And Tillman was still managing to be a great sort of safety valve last year. So, they have talent that is designed to be sort of quarterback proof. So I feel like even with Dillon Gabriel back there, they still would have won 4 or 5 games, which is not a whole lot. But in a world where I don't really see New Orleans or Miami winning, I mean, winning games might be a fair way to say that. We might have a pair of 1-16 teams in the league this year. They still are probably not going to be at number 1. Now, with that being said, they do have some decent draft capital, and there are a handful of decent quarterbacks coming out. So you still, if you're in the market, which I'm with you, I don't think Gabriel or Sanders is the long-term answer there. You just want to be as high as you can, this year. But Flacco does give them a real chance at, passing maybe the Jets or passing maybe even the Raiders or something of that nature, although the Raiders look pretty good today. But if they end up as like 11th or 12th in the AFC, I'm with you. That's not where you want the Browns to be. The other thing I'll touch on real quick before I move on, because you mentioned the Steelers there and how good Rodgers looked. They looked good today, but I'm still skeptical. And Calvin Austin had some moments. But, when you look at a team that has a strong pass rusher and a strong CB1, but has some questionable defensive depth in an otherwise bend don't break defense, and a team that's a run first, multi-back team with no wide receiver 2 quarterbacked by Aaron Rodgers. Am I describing the Jets last year or Pittsburgh this year? And the answer is yes. Pittsburgh almost kind of carbon copied the Jets last year. And on the one hand, we know it doesn't work. But on the other hand, we saw the Jets lose a real bad game where they couldn't just get out of their own, red zone, basically 20 yards away from their end zone in that game against Denver. And we saw them lose a heartbreaker in Europe. And, they were poorly coached last year. And so as much as I'd love to say Rodgers looks good, if they get even to remotely to 8 or 9 wins this year, let alone if they sniff the playoffs, let's talk Tomlin for coach of the year, because right now they're very similar to the Jets. The difference is the Jets had a terrible coach. The Jets have one of the best coaches in the league. The Steelers have one of the best coaches in the league this year. And so I think the Tomlin effect, the Tomlin factor, sells me more on the Steelers than anything else, because otherwise it's not surprising they basically played an even game with the Jets, because they're very similar to only 1 year removed from being exactly who the Jets were last year.
The only reason I have them higher than the Bengals is because that Bengals defense just scares me, and not in a good way. And their offensive line is still not great. Joe Burrow took a big hit from Myles Garrett, and if you lose Joe Burrow, that team is bad, right? They have good receivers.
I agree, but I mean that's true of pretty much everyone in the top 6 or 7 in the AFC.
No, I understand that, but they don't if they were to lose, if the Steelers lose Rodgers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're confident enough with Mason Rudolph, and they have a solid enough. Again, this is no injuries, magical world, right? Other than Aaron Rodgers got hurt. That defense would carry them farther than the Bengals team if they were to lose Joe Burrow. That's all I need.
Oh, I agree with that completely. But again, to me, you look at Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. They get to play the Jets, who have the absurdity that is Brandon Stevens as their cornerback too. They get to play New England, who I can't even name their CB2. Miami trades away Jalen Ramsey. They're a common opponent. Cleveland twice, who I can't name their CB2, is a common opponent. I mean, you're talking 5. I mean, I'm sure there are more out there, games where the wide receiver 2 is going to be critical. Cincinnati's wide receiver 2 is T. Higgins. Pittsburgh's wide receiver 2 is, pick your favorite, either Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson. I mean, that's going to catch up to these two. The Steelers have to trade for a wide receiver at some point. Otherwise, that alone to me, I mean, it's, again, power rankings versus –
why don't they go get CeeDee Lamb?
Yeah, power rankings versus play the games on the schedule are two totally different things. And power rankings wise, Cincinnati, I'm with you. They're closer than Bengals fans and common fans and fantasy fans would like to believe. But the schedule for both of these teams this year really plays to the strength of a team with a strong wide receiver too. And I mean, Cincinnati, I think you can make the case, has the best wide, you're talking Philadelphia, you're talking Cincinnati, a couple others for who has the best wide receiver too in all of football. Meanwhile, if I didn't give you the answer a few minutes ago, I don't know how many people can name the other receivers in Pittsburgh. And so I think when we're just talking.
You just did, and I still can't.
There you go. And so I think just when you're talking wins in the division, I got to put Cincinnati up. With that being said, though, if I was a gambling man, I don't know how I'd bet Pittsburgh, Cincinnati when they play each other. I think they split this year, each one taking its home game. So, again, in a vacuum, pretty close to each other. But just the way the schedule lines up this year really favors how Cincinnati's built versus how Pittsburgh's built, considering they play so many common opponents.
And I like my Ravens team. I just want them to get better in the playoffs, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's just, a little bit frustrating. I'm not sure if it's Harbaugh's coaching or if it's Lamar really is. So not everyone's made for the playoffs. I mean, if you look at Peyton Manning, he struggled a lot in the playoffs. Look at Dan Marino. There's other, quarterbacks that were amazing, right? And then they struggled in the playoffs. Lamar does turn the ball over a lot in the playoffs, and that is the big thing that I'm concerned with. Outside of that, I love this team. I think their defense is going to be significantly better this year. They started off so poor last year. They got significantly better in the second half. I think that they had enough additions that this defense is going to be, again, very good. I don't know if they're going to be top 5 in the NFL, but I can easily see them being a top 10 defense, which I know there's only 32 teams. So it's not like amazing. You're talking about like the top third, but I still think that's with that offense, that's all you really need. Let's move over to the AFC South, this wonderful, wonderful division. Golly, Danny Dimes. How about Danny Dimes?
Hey, listen, they got that right. They can that whole coaching staff can sleep real well at night, knowing they came up with that. Steichen's supposed to be a bit of a quarterback whisperer. That's why they originally brought him in to work with Richardson. So, I mean, Jones, by all accounts, is coachable, right? He never had the most talent with the Giants. So,
and he's
looks like we're onto something here.
He's a locker room guy too, from everything I've heard.
Like, he's a leader by all accounts. I mean, we know how that team did pretty decent with Joe Flacco last year leading them, so they needed some leadership. They got some leadership.
My only issue with Daniel Jones was always he was drafted too high, and it was very weird. That was my only issue with him. And that's not his fault.
Yeah, with how good Dexter Lawrence is, it looks like in hindsight they could have just switched their draft picks in that draft. Yeah, no, I mean, this one I really don't want to – we got to keep moving here, and I don't want to take too much time on a division that to me seems like a lock to only put one team into the playoffs. And this is the division that every year I think I know what's going to happen, and I never know. All I know is that they're pretty much a lock to lose to the 5 seed in the first round of the playoffs.
I think it's going to be tight between Houston and Indianapolis. I think Jacksonville's a solid 3, and I think Tennessee has a lot to work to do.
Yeah, I love I will give them this. I love the direction all 4 of these teams are headed.
Yes.
I think, with the Colts, you saw it a couple times today. I think the loss of Will Fry's Jersey boy, might hit them a little bit harder than they thought. DJ Giddens looks like he's a pretty safe. I know he got a lot of run today because they won by $1 billion, but Giddens looks like he's probably one of the best or better backup running backs they've had there in a while. If anything happens to Taylor, Pittman looks like he is revived playing with Daniel Jones. Pierce is still a good deep ball guy. So I like that Colt team a lot. I always kind of had them in the mix. The Texan offensive line is really the question. I know we said we're not going to talk injuries, but I think you can discuss the Texans a little bit differently because Stroud is still fearing for his life back there. I still think the Texans
are David Carr.
Yeah. I still think the Texans are the Joe Mixon injury is trouble, having to get Higgins and Noel, especially with Kirk being injured this week, having to kind of get them into the fold. There's just, to me, too much going on in Houston. And again, I think this is a case where if we played this division out on Madden, if we were to just have, the computer generate and everyone's healthy, I think the Texans win this division. but there's a chance the Colts could win this division on 10 wins, or even Jacksonville sneaks in on 9 wins. I think this division's evenly matched enough that they can all go about 4-2, 3-3. Even Tennessee, I think, is sneakily, feisty enough to steal a 2-4 record in this division. And I think they'll eat each other alive. So I'm going to say this is the one division I don't feel good about, don't feel confident about. But from top to bottom, give me Colts, Texans, Jags, Titans. But basically anything other than the Titans winning double-digit games, nothing in this division would surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually really close to putting Jacksonville higher as the number 2 because of Houston's line, but I don't know. I think that I don't think any of these teams are going to be a threat in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I tell you what, Jacksonville's new coach looks like he really has figured out already how to correctly use Travis Hunter. He looked real healthy today, although it came at the expense of Thomas. So fantasy owners, sorry, there's going to be between that and having 9 running backs in Jacksonville. It's a fantasy nightmare if you're waiting for Liam Cohen to tip his hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to say that.
But yeah, I mean, fantasy be damned. I mean, this team looks pretty feisty. And again, Carolina looked shockingly broken for it. You always see this team that has a good last 6 games and then carries it over. Carolina was the sexiest, pick for that. And they just looked like damaged goods. I don't know what they did in the offseason, but I mean, trading away Thielen only to have Coker get hurt did them no favors. We'll talk about them on the NFC side in a minute. But yeah, no, Jacksonville gave me no reason not to believe they can't finish in the top 2 in this division after today. But in turn, no one really broke serve, I guess you could say today. There's no one I looked at in the AFC South and think any differently than I did 20 hours ago. Because even the Colts, who destroyed, to me, that's more a reflection of how truly bad the Dolphins are, than how good the Colts are.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move to the probably toughest division in the AFC, the AFC West. I think there's 3 teams that are or there's 2 teams that have the chance to be very good. I think Chiefs, Chargers are the the top 2 teams. I think they both have the best coaches. I think Denver is the number 3, and the only reason I have the Raiders at 4 is I think that team is just missing weapons, and they just their tight end Brock
Bowers, yeah,
got hurt today.
Yeah,
so that and that's their big weapon on offense, and a rookie running back. So, it's going to be tough for them. I think that this team is got a nice future. I think that they are the 4th best team to me. I think Denver, I think again, Denver's going to be tough. Bo Nix did not have a great game, but again, it's one game. It's again, sophomore slump potentially. This actually division has all really good coaches now that I think about it, right?
Yep.
Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and
Harbaugh. Yeah,
and if I'm not mistaken, all of them have been to Super Bowls.
Yeah, no, it's a loaded division for sure. I guess it's a podcast, right? By law, we have to throw out some hot takes, or else what are we doing here, right? I will go as far as to say, even though I'm with you, I have Vegas in 4th, but I will say I would have to consider Vegas. If Vegas was in the AFC South or the NFC West, I would consider them at least a potential division winner in those 2 divisions.
Yes.
And I think Denver would win the AFC South. I think Denver would win the NFC West. And I think Denver would win the NFC South. I think they're better than Tampa Bay. I mean, this is an insane division. Tennessee's defense is feisty. Denver has like 30 wide receivers, all equally young and good. They have to figure out what they're doing. I get that's going to take time. And so to me, it's more about Denver and Vegas again, because we're doing how we think they're going to finish. These aren't power rankings. I can't say it enough before anyone comes and finds us in the comments. So I think Vegas and Denver, with more to figure out, are going to be towards the bottom. But that's the only reason why. Again, put these as robots in a computer. And, I think Vegas, I think Michael Mayer is arguably the best second, tight end 2 in the league. will actually kind of help with the Brock Bowers injury if there's anything. I think, Beshin and Thornton there in Vegas as the rookie wide receiver tandem, is great. Now, Jacoby Myers demanding a trade might throw things off there in Vegas. But I'm with you. I go Vegas, I go Denver. And now here's where, I think, again, this whole power versus winning thing is a factor. Listen, the Chargers get to play Minnesota. Now, remember, the Chargers are a team that didn't do a whole lot in the offseason other than bringing in Hampton in terms of messing up their continuity. They get to play Minnesota. They get to play the Giants. They get to play Vegas twice. They get to play Indy, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh. 7 of their games are against a team that has a quarterback who's on that team for the first year. I mean, you are a team that can pride itself on continuity and building off of last year, and you get 7 first-year quarterbacks. I'm sorry, they're going to win this division. The schedule is too friendly for that.
I was going to say the same thing.
Okay, cool.
I think that the fact that there's so many injuries to the offense for this for Kansas City, who other than Travis Kelce, who's he going to throw? Who's Mahomes going to throw to? I mean, people have to step up. Maybe they'll have to go out and sign someone. I think that I don't think that we're going to say that they're not going to make the playoffs. I think they're still going to make the playoffs. I think that they're going to be hovering around 10, 11 wins if they don't, because their number one receiver is suspended for 6 games. That's a lot. They got a tough Eagles team next week. Starting off 0-2 is going to be very tough to get out of. But I do think that this team is, I think power ranking wise, you would probably put them higher. Right, I think final seat record wise, like you said, the Chargers are going to have the better record.
Right. If I could segue this into kind of closing up the AFC here, I want to just kind of give you my overall tiers and playoff predictions, because something very unique actually happens with the AFC West here. So I have, and I'm just going to give you the whole thing, and then you can either piggyback off mine or give me your own. I have the Ravens and Bills as 1A and 1B. They're going to be the first and second seed in some order. I don't really care which. I also think they're playing the championship game this year. So I really don't care. It's just a matter of who hosts it.
Fingers crossed.
But I have the Chargers, excuse me. I almost said San Diego. I have the Chargers as the 3, because whoever wins the AFC South, like I said, I think it's the Colts, but I really don't care, is the 4. Now, this is where this gets interesting, because amongst the wild cards, I have the 2 AFC West teams as the first 2 and as locks. And so if you're a Charger fan, you're actually a Broncos fan this year. You have to be, because if the no, you're not. You're a Chiefs fan. Pardon me. You're a Chiefs fan, because if the Broncos somehow get ahead of the Chiefs, you're going to have like Broncos Colts or something gross in the first round of the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But then you'd have Chiefs at Chargers. You do not want that if you are a Charger fan. If you're the Chargers, you basically need the Chiefs to be knocking on your door the whole time. And in fact, if you're the Chargers, you don't even mind coming in second, because you get your first playoff game. Yeah, it'll be on the road, but it'll be against the AFC South champion instead of hosting a division rival for the 3rd time, which is always a crapshoot. So a little bit of an oddity there, but I'm going to give you the Chiefs as 5, the Broncos as 6. And then that to me is the end of the second tier. So it's Bills and Ravens as the first tier. By default, the AFC South champion, the 3 AFC West teams are the second tier. Now the third tier, I have Cincinnati making the playoffs as the 7 seed. I think that offense and Joe Burrow are just going to find a way. Joe Burrow can't miss the playoffs that often in his career. He's too good. So, we haven't heard his name in a while. I'm going to put him in the 7. But I do have whichever of the Texans or Colts don't win the division as a sneaky, probably 8th. I have New England as 9th. And that's really where I think it ends. I don't think Vegas is going to be able to get in. I don't think, like I said, the Jets schedule doesn't lend itself. So I put them in a different tier. Cleveland's in a lower tier. Miami's in a lower tier. And the Titans are in a lower tier. So, again, I go Ravens, Bills, Chargers, Colts, Chiefs, Broncos, Bengals. That's my AFC playoffs.
I think my only difference is I think it will be Houston over the Bengals.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, no, again, I have them in the same tier. I just think the Bengals schedule plays to their strength there.
But also, as a Ravens fan, I don't want anyone else from my division in it.
I respect that as well. The 7 is the one I'd be willing to fight you, fight you the least on for sure. But
cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that ultimately that I will say this. I think whoever wins tonight between Baltimore and Buffalo is who will be the number 1 seed.
This game could be important tonight. I'm with you.
All right, let's move on to the National Football Conference. Starting with the NFC East. I think that this is going to be a little bit closer than I initially thought for who's going to win the division. I think that it's safe to say, unless the Giants switch to Dart, that this team is going to be last place.
Yes, that's safe.
I like what Dart did enough that I think the Giants are comfortable, which they should be. You just spend a first-round pick on him as your quarterback of the future. Maybe if it was me, I would give Jameis Winston a chance over Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson didn't look great last year with Pittsburgh. He didn't look great the year before with Denver. I think he's just he's at the end of his career. I think that their offense is not great, but I don't know. It didn't. And again, I know it's just preseason. It didn't look this bad in preseason. It's very odd that it looked so bad in the first game against a team that is who did they play again? They played the Commanders.
The Giants played the Commanders,
and it was and the Commanders weren't like blowing them away early in the game. It was that I expected, because again, the Giants have a very good defense, right?
So they have a very good box, and yes. The Giants, and not to cut you off there, but the Giants are a lot like the Jets in that it's pretty obvious. The formula to stop them is pretty obvious. Triple team Malik Neighbors and force Slayton or Hyatt to have a big game. Don't run the ball directly at Dexter Lawrence, and double team Burns on the edge. And until Abdul Carter starts making plays consistently, I mean, it's day one in the NFL. No matter how good he is, it's going to take time. But most important, I mean, JCM. I mean, I know there was a lot of hype around the man they call Bill in the Commanders' backfield. But even still, he was a rookie who was questionably going to be listed as a healthy scratch today. When he scored his touchdown today, all he did was go to the outside, and he could have ran that ball 900 yards if he wanted to. I mean, the formula is very easy. Just keep it. I mean, the Giants are just a little too top heavy right now. And listen, I think they're, again, team trending in the right direction, team with a lot of good things happening, but just not ready yet. And I'll just go one step further and say Dallas, also very much like the Jets, in a good but not great team.
Yeah, they're a middling team, schedule, right? And that's not where you want to be, right? Especially when you have a veteran quarterback like Dak Prescott. You don't want to be a middling team. You want to be either contending, or at this point, you got to be looking to ship players out and rebuilding. They're not, especially when you move on Micah Parsons. Which, if you want to hear my Ungo's opinion about that, go check out the You Go Boy podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate the shout out. I do need to give one quick shout out to the top of this league, because I think, are we both in agreement? Giants from bottom to top, Giants, Dallas, Commanders, Eagles.
I do, but I think the Commanders, Eagles is going to be closer than we think.
Yeah, and that's really what I just want to talk about real quick. You could not, if you gave me the money to bet the over on the Commanders this season, I would not have touched it with a 1,000-foot pole, because you're looking at it's a sophomore quarterback, which you always have to be careful about. They get rid of his security blanket in Brian Robinson, no matter how much they believe in JCM. You bring in Deebo Samuel, who we know has a history of not being afraid to voice his unhappiness. You had an unhappy offseason from Terry McLaurin, so now he's paid. So, is he going to get lazy and stay unhappy? I mean, there's a ton of reasons to believe in this team's implosion, and they just came out against a team that they should just kind of walk over in their sleep, and they literally walked over them. I mean, you got exactly if you're a Commander fan, you got exactly what you wanted. Now, again, would it have been a different story if they were playing one of these teams that came out swinging like Green Bay or the Chargers? We'll find out when they play those teams. But, you just wanted Washington to come out and just take care of business against teams they should take care of. And they did that. So, I actually came in today with the Commanders being closer to the Giants and Cowboys than the Eagles. I'm with you now. I still think they're safely second, but I do have them closer to the Eagles than I do to the Cowboys and Giants. So I will say that was a slight, I don't call that an overreaction. Like I said, the only teams that have me, flaming hot Cheetos mad overreacting were the Jets and Browns. But I do have, I'm allowed, right? I'm allowed to use my eyes and make tiny shifts.
Yes.
Give me the Commanders a little bit up, closer to the Eagles, but still to me, that 4 is pretty obvious.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any question about that. Let's move to the NFC North. This one's tough for me, right? I think all 4 teams are solid teams. I thought Detroit was going to run away again, but the bringing in of Micah Parsons, I don't think he really did anything today. I don't even know if he played.
Sparingly, he was around. They play on Thursday, so they had to be anyone with any sort of probable tag, anyone older. You got to be kind of this early in the season. You got to be careful about it. I mean, they won, so obviously you can't blame them at all. But I wouldn't have blamed them even in a conservative 27-21 loss. I wouldn't have blamed them because you definitely didn't want to risk leading yourself into trouble on Thursday.
Right, especially seeing he came off of does have a back injury, right? Like that is why he allegedly sat out the preseason, right?
Right.
I like Love. I don't love Love, but I like him. I think he is, I think he's a quarterback that will get you wins and can get you in the playoffs. Obviously, you don't know how he's going to do in the playoffs. He played one year in the playoffs,
right.
Maybe 2.
And he always comes in as the 7th seed.
Right. So, I don't hold much merit to that. I think Detroit, Detroit, I think, should be better than they played today. It's one game. Don't overreact. Minnesota, I think it's a bit. The big question mark is JJ if he is who they thought he was, and was it correct to move on from Sam Darnold or not? They have what's the guy's name? Kevin.
Kevin O'Connell
is one of the best QB whisperers in the world. You send any quarterback there to him, and he'll make him a Pro Bowler. So at least that's positive. That's good. I think Chicago will still be the 4th, but not because they're bad. I think that they're going to be like hovering around 500 or the equivalent of 500 nowadays. I think it will. So this is how I have Chicago at the bottom. I have Minnesota, and I think Detroit ends up winning, but I think Detroit Green Bay is going to be way closer than we originally thought.
No, I listen, I don't mind that. And I tell you what, this is a division that's very reminiscent of any time a coordinator or an assistant coach leaves Alabama, goes to another SEC team, and then stinks wherever they go. And I really do worry about the effect Ben Johnson is going to have on literally half of this division. I thought Ben Johnson was atrocious in the playoffs last year. I thought Detroit imploded on itself. And it really got me thinking, how much of this is Ben Johnson dialing up magic? And how much of this is Ben Johnson not being fully sure what he's doing and just having all the assets in Detroit, right? If you have guys who can handle trick plays and guys who can handle power runs and guys who can handle deep balls and guys who, if you can do anything you want, well, then it doesn't matter what you do, right? And I really think we were giving Ben Johnson a little too much credit. And I hope for Bears fans I'm wrong, but this might be a case where Ben Johnson doesn't have the talent in Chicago, so he can't look as good as he did as a coordinator. But then Detroit, who did have the talent to use the Ben Johnson magic, takes a step back because they don't have Ben Johnson. So he might affect 2 teams in this division. And so as a result, I actually have it a little bit different at the top. I have Chicago as a distant 4th. I'm out on, I mean, we've seen it with Matt Patricia. It comes to mind.
You said this during our last episode that you were not sold on him, or maybe that was just between me and you. We were talking.
But right, Matt Patricia, Josh McDaniel, we've seen a lot of sexy coordinator names not work out. And so I'm out on the Bears. I'm sorry. And I'm in what I think is a very competitive top three. I think the Lions are going to be better than the Bears by about 5 or 6 games, but I actually have the Lions third, the Packers second. And then, hey, listen, you said is JJ McCarthy who they thought he was. Listen, Sam Darnold wasn't who they thought he was. They thought Sam Darnold was a rental who could hopefully keep them afloat when McCarthy got injured. And now he got the big paycheck. And shout out to our buddy Jesse. He won Jesse a fantasy football league last year. I mean, he was incredible. So listen, even if JJ McCarthy is, who Sam Darnold was, they're still going to be competitive. I know Aaron Jones is getting up there in years, but, he still seems to be able to always be where he needs to be on a critical 4th and 3 in the fourth quarter. You have Justin Jefferson, which a lot of teams don't have. I'm sorry. So I think Minnesota, Green Bay, Detroit separated by only a game or two. But I think Minnesota prevails. Really, again, we talked about, coaching being a factor in the AFC. I think O'Connell's just ahead of the other guys in this division. And I love Dan Campbell, but I don't think he's as good of an intangibles guy. I think he's a good intangibles guy. I don't think he's as good of an X's and O's guy as Kevin O'Connell.
Oh, I don't disagree with you on that. I also think that those three are significantly better than Chicago. I just don't think Chicago is going to be as bad as you think they're going to be. But I could be wrong. This could be my Detroit Pistons.
This could be my Detroit Pistons. We've both been check out our basketball show when coming out, in just a week or so, where we get way too blindly loyal to a team that ends up winning 21 games every single season. And we've each had a shot at Detroit before.
All right, let's move to the NFC South.
All right,
boy. Carolina might be. Carolina and New Orleans are fighting for last.
Yeah, I got to be totally honest here. If anyone's wondering why do I keep looking to my right here, it's because I'm counting the NFC that I'm realizing by the second might be the weakest conference in any sport in any year in history, and seeing if I actually have 7 playoff teams or if I need to pretend to defend the Atlanta Falcons. But fortunately, no, I don't have to. Listen, Carolina's bad, but not nearly as bad as New Orleans. Atlanta's vanilla, but not nearly as vanilla as Carolina. And from bottom to top, to me, it's Saints, Panthers, Falcons, Bucks. And I don't even think anything's remotely close here. I think the Falcons are a team that, again, just not enough talent there. Stuff the box, double London, and let the rest fall where it may. They needed some really wild, magical plays to even stay in that game today. I think Michael Penix is a year or two away. I think Tampa, meanwhile, has like 9 Pro Bowl wide receivers. That has to count for something.
Yeah, that wide receiver
is sick. I love Bucky Irving. Carolina, I don't think is as bad as they looked today. Again, I accidentally mentioned it when we were talking on the AFC side, that Jalen Coker injury happening seconds after they traded away Adam Thielen. Is terrible. With that being said, though, they were getting value out of guys like Adam Thielen. They were getting value out of guys like Jalen Coker, which means whether it's once a guy, gets waived or whether it's they find somebody on somebody else's practice squad, if they could turn Jalen Coker into a formidable slot receiver, they can do that with a lot of guys. And, Hunter Renfrow, didn't think he'd be playing as much as he did. They need to kind of figure it out on offense. I still think they're only a 4 or 5 or 6 win team, which might be enough to get Dave Canales fired after not taking a step forward with how good they looked in December last year. But man, this Saint team, listen, God bless you if you didn't watch any of that game. First of all, it was the Cardinals in white against the Saints in a very, like you watched an Elf doll too many times. Faded burnt sienna style brown in just one of the most sad color bowls we've ever seen. The Saints, the Superdome was lively, but man, it was a tough game to physically watch. And then, there were missed special teams opportunities and drops, and Spencer Radler looks as advertised, which is not a good thing in the context of that sentence. And listen, Alvin Kamara can't be asked to do that much. Giving the ball to Alvin Kamara over the middle is a safer bet than having.
Is he like 100 by now?
And yeah, I mean, I don't think he's sustainable. I think if they have him do what he did today, again, we don't talk injuries on this show, but they got to do so. Even they got to do some, even if it's just more Taysom Hill, 2 yard in a cloud of dust runs up the middle. They got to do something. But I mean, this was a winnable game for them, and they treated it like their Super Bowl. I'll give them that. The Saints look like they are going to attempt to win the games they can win to avoid going 1-16, which in a league where half the league is actively tanking half the time, I respect that. But man, the Saints are bad.
I think the Saints would be smart for them to take calls for Kamara.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they would be smart to take calls for basically everyone not named Olave. But that is one of the most loyal fan bases. That is a generally respected franchise down there. They would be a team that would look very dangerous with a different quarterback situation, which is why, Tyler Shuck not being able to win that job is a little bit alarming. They drafted a second round quarterback who couldn't.
And Rattler, he's bad. He was not. It was his job. It wasn't even his job to win. He was just.
Rattler and Daniel Jones both kind of accidentally won jobs because the young guy they wanted to couldn't get it done, and one delivered and one. I mean, Spencer Rattler wasn't atrocious today by any means, but there's no reason if you're power ranking the 32 starting quarterbacks, Rattler should just live at 32 until. Until someone gets hurt. And yeah, I mean, in fairness, there are better backups out there, which I know this is totally off topic, but there are about 5 teams in the league at this point. I would have started Tyler Huntley when he was sitting out there in free agency this year. I would have gone and gotten Tyler Huntley. I'm sorry. At least he's mobile. He always looks semi-competent when he back with the Jets in week 18 last year. But anyway, totally off topic. Let's hit the last division here.
The West. This division is not as good as I would like them to be.
Thank you. Criminally overrated. I'm sorry. I don't like this division.
I think the Rams are. I don't know. I think there's a chance the Seahawks just win the division because their team is fine and doesn't. They're like. I think that the 49ers are overrated. I think that they've been overrated for a while. I think that the Rams are just let's be honest. Matthew Stafford should probably not be playing right now. He's playing with a back injury is not something. And Kyler Murray is just he's fine. He's not the team is not great. I don't know. Seahawks win the division as my guess.
Yeah, I don't blame you here. I tell you what,
I'll take the crab juice.
I always, in my defense of, and again, go watch anything we've ever talked football the last 2 or 3 years. My defense of Burrow and Herbert being closer to the Allen, Lamar, Mahomes tier than a third tier in the NFL has always been that if you told me one quarterback game on the, Super Bowl, game on the line, who am I putting in there? I always trust Burrow and Herbert to get down the field one last time. This might be the most I don't trust you guys at all group of quarterbacks I have ever seen in my life, between Stafford's back, between Darnold being a one-hit wonder, between Murray looking like he's going to throw it into the 9th row or run for 900 yards at any given minute. And then Purdy getting paid. You never know what's going to happen after somebody gets paid. You also, Kittle is 1 year older. You take away Deebo Samuel. McCaffrey is 1 year older. Hey, hello. We have a special guest. Hi. So listen,
he's better than half the quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, I would start him for sure. Listen, I think this division puts out one playoff team. I have it as the Rams. I just think their pass rush is kind of fun to watch and can do some damage in this division. I'm with you though. Now, again, here's where this gets fun. In Madden, where McCaffrey and Kittle can't get hurt, I think San Francisco wins the division. If I'm betting, Seattle is the safest bet. But with a little bit of, if you're willing to not be totally averse to some risk here, which again, it's just a show. What do I care? Give me the Rams. So from top to bottom, I'm going to go Rams, Seahawks, Niners, Cardinals. But I think this is a division that literally all four of those teams could be separated by like 2 games. There could be a tiebreaker on this division. And I don't think any of these teams are good enough to be a wild card team. So I have the Rams, obviously, as the 4 seed, that means. I would not be surprised if anyone wins this division, as much as I'd be surprised if 2 teams make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, if 2 teams make the playoffs, it's because Matthew Stafford stayed healthy the whole season, and the Seahawks were just good enough to be better than I could see. Well, no, the North is so. I think 3 teams from the North probably make it, right?
I will do our picks in a minute, but yeah, I have that as well. That's where I'm getting, because if you're sitting there going, I've now trashed half the NFC, where am I getting these teams from? I'm getting them all from the North.
Yeah. Who do you have in the NFC championship? I have Eagles. I guess I'll go Eagles and Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm going to take it back one step here real quick.
It's all green.
I have, that'll be a fun game. I have just real quick from 1 to 7. I go Eagles, Bucks, Vikings, Rams, Packers, Lions, Commanders. But that's kind of interesting because I think it has to do with how many games they could lose to the bottom of their division. Like I have the Bucks. There's a chance the Bucks, Vikings, and Rams are the 2, 3, and 4 and all lose in the first round of the playoffs. You could be looking at a 1, 5, 6, 7, NFC Central.
My only thing is I don't know if it's pop. Oh, is it? I guess it is because it happened last year. That it's a repeat of last year's. If that can happen again, then yeah, I'll have the repeat of last year.
Yeah, it's very possible. I'm gonna take. I have the Vikings and Lions playing in the first round of the playoffs as a 3-6 matchup. And I'm going to say the winner of that game ends up playing the Eagles, which I know is a bit of a cop-out, but
that's fine.
I do think the Eagles do come out of the NFC, and I do think the NFC is playing for the right to lose by 900 in the Super Bowl. The only team who I think has a fighting chance is the Eagles, because in a setting like the Super Bowl, experience matters. So,
yes,
I think San Francisco would have a fighting chance at controlling the narrative in the Super Bowl more than the Vikings would, more than the Packers would, more than even the Bucks would. They've changed so much since their last Super Bowl. So I think the Eagles are at least intelligent enough. But man, to me, the arguably the 4 or 5 best teams are all in the AFC. But give me the Eagles ultimately coming out of the NFC.
Yeah, I'm going to go with, we're going to have which I predicted last year and that didn't happen. We're going to have the Bird Bowl.
Yeah, Eagles Ravens. I'm there with you. I know it's good. For those of you who stayed with us for the whole hour, sorry to bore you with a surprise ending, but are you then going Ravens over Eagles?
Of course I am.
Yeah, no, it was a great show and I love doing the show with you, but for those of you who stuck around for 62 minutes, sorry. I think the ending here is pretty predictable. I mean, it's the NFL. Anything can happen anytime. I mean, the biggest shock is what's going to go up Kilroy's nose next. To me, it's a very top-heavy football season, which I think is going to lead to a lot of fun weeks where a lot of, you're going to get a lot of like the Titans shock the Steelers, things of that nature, or, the Cowboys shock the Falcons, or, I don't even know if these teams play each other, but you get my point. Games that are going to seem shocking, but ultimately mean nothing. And I think those are some of the funnest years, because in basketball, you get stuff like that all the time, but because it's 82 games, nobody cares. In football, those games can be exciting when they happen because they have more permanent effect on the standings. But at the end of the day, I think the final 4 or 5 teams standing are pretty evident. Now, you never know. Washington makes a run last year. You never know who's going to take it. But at the end of the day, you can it's hard to imagine a world where the two teams standing in the AFC are not some combination of the Bills, Ravens, and Chiefs, and the two teams standing in the AFC and the NFC, excuse me, are not the Eagles and something that comes out of the North. But yeah, I'll take Ravens over Eagles in the Super Bowl as well.
All right. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment down below who you have winning the Super Bowl. Take care.
Love you guys.